What's up, world? This is America. My name is Hobson McCain,
My name is Mark Ray Redmond.
and we are coming at you today with episode 20. Big episode, ladies and gentlemen. Let's clap it up for our 20th episode. We're going to assume that you're clapping with us. That's what we're going to do. But this is a interesting episode just because it's a social segment. Involved with white supremacists, but not necessarily their prevalence or success in the present day. So, as you guys know, Sunday, August 12th, was the anniversary of Charlottesville. And this was a infamous day in present day American history because basically a year ago, a whole bunch of white supremacists gathered in Charlottesville, Virginia, and marched around the streets carrying tiki torches, having swastikas, Confederate flags, chanting "White Lives Matter" and "You will not replace us." Now, the main focus of these white supremacists is that they believe by the fact that minorities are fighting for active civil rights and progressive ideologies in terms of social progression. They think that white people are losing their dominance, and they don't think that there should be a white America where white people are not the majority. So, on the anniversary of, and let me rewind a couple steps back. Last year, the rallies got notably violent, so violent, in fact, that there were multiple assault charges filed against white supremacists, a murder charge against the white supremacist who drove his car into a crowd full of counter protesters. So this was all it was a very hectic time, right? Very hectic situation. When asked, our president, Donald Trump, said that there were, I quote, this is a quote, there were fine people on both sides. And
Very fine.
that was a huge deal, back in 2017 when he said that, just because to even allude to the fact that there were fine people that were willing to march next to neo-Nazis and skinheads and white supremacist rally. There were fine people on the white supremacist side.
No. Think about what they're chanting against. They're chanting against what we pride ourselves as being like. I understand that America prides itself on being like a melting pot.
Yeah.
Of sorts. That's what we are. Their chants were opposition to that ideology. The entire idea of being a melting pot is what they were against. You will not replace us, is what they were chanting, because, like you just said, they're becoming a minority in this country. They're not a minority today. But at that protest, it was the protest Sunday specifically. It was more of a brief look into the future and what it's going to be.
And I would even say that, as white supremacists go, I think white supremacy is more prevalent than we in America give it credit for being.
In the year since Charlottesville, from 2016 to 2017, hate crimes rose 12%.
Yeah,
I do believe
12% in the top six, in the largest six cities of America, and 20% in, I think, the 40 cities that were studied. So, and this is since 2016. So from 2016 to 2017 and 18, that's how much.
That was before,
Yeah, before Donald Trump got elected, it was down 12%. Donald Trump got elected, and it rose 12%. So the Unite the Right marches started. Well, they didn't start with when Donald Trump got elected. That would be fake news if I said that. The formation of Unite the Right and the right fascist movement, it's been going on in the shadows for a while now. but it didn't get as prevalent. Like we said, hate crimes have risen in the past 2 years by up to 20% in some areas. So hate crimes and the idea that white supremacy can be prevalent and can be vocalized on such a public scale is in large part due to the election of Donald Trump. And I'm going to say that because people who organized the first Charlottesville rally, like David Duke, who used to be the Grand Master of the KKK in Louisiana, he has quotes and he's been recorded on TV at the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville last year, saying that he believes that Donald Trump is the savior and that because Donald Trump got elected, he doesn't think that white people are going to be losing anymore. And keep in mind, white people losing means minorities being equal.
White people losing means integration.
Yeah, basically,
Everybody. It's everything that everybody's been fighting for. He thinks that Donald Trump is going to.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump hasn't made any strides towards, helping any of the groups that David Duke doesn't like. So.
Yeah, and he hasn't outright condemned any of the groups that David Duke does like. I mean, I think he said, "We do not support the KKK, but there were fine people on both sides." Something of that sort. And,
wasn't it the first one where he just said there was very fine people on both sides? He didn't condemn either side until after.
Yeah, until there was outrage about it, until people started checking him.
When he first came out after Charlottesville, he was like, "There were very fine people on both sides." It kind of got out of hand. That was just what he said. Like, he didn't want to blame either side for what happened, even though it was one side's rally. Like, one side actually started the whole thing. Kind of takes me back to, the stand your ground law, where you start something, but I'm not even going to go down that path. It's just the fact that Donald Trump has empowered these groups of people with his rhetoric, where he doesn't condemn them like he should, like any other president would have. There are presidents like George Bush, who Kanye West said doesn't care about black people, who would not even, I couldn't even imagine him trying to look like he was friends with David Duke.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump have an issue with it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say Donald Trump is friends with David Duke, but like you said, yeah, that's just for clarification's sake. But if David Duke considers you a friend, even if you don't consider him a friend, if David Duke considers you a friend, you might need to check where your policies and your ideologies lie. And I guess you could say that's my opinion. It is. David Duke would never, ever, ever say Hobson McCain is his friend.
I don't think that that's an opinion, bro. I feel like in America, you shouldn't want David Duke to be your friend.
Not at all, especially in modern day America.
Yeah, it's 2010. If it was 1786, maybe, and he would have fallen on the side that lost. So David Duke is not representative of 2018 America.
Yeah, presumably. So, trying to bring it a little bit back on track. That was a rally on Sunday, right? This was supposed to be another showing of power for white supremacists. The rallies were a dud. Nobody showed up except for counter-protesters. There was hundreds upon hundreds of counter-protesters, and in D.C. specifically, there was around 25 white supremacists that made the march. Keep in mind, they had a police escort, so the law was protecting their right to advocate for white supremacy through the streets of the capital of the country. But we have NFL players that are blackballed because they took a knee standing for police brutality and socioeconomic equality.
Question. Did you know that Donald Trump tweeted about the rally?
About the Charlottesville rally?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't tweet anything condemning the Charlottesville rally at all.
But he condemned you for taking a knee.
Yes.
He won't condemn you for saying You will not replace it. White people at the top of America, at the top of the food chain, running everything, stepping on everyone. It's what they represent. He won't say anything to them, but he'll say something to Colin Kaepernick for taking a knee. I just want you guys to let that sink in and understand, like, morally the implications of that.
The gravity of it, like really, like players took a knee in a preseason game. 2 players took a knee in the past week of football. 2 players took a knee, and Donald Trump tweeted, "NFL players are back at it again. They need to be fired and fined," and all that crap. And then the white supremacists have been organizing a rally for a minute now, for months. It's been known that they were going to have this rally on the anniversary of when the same people killed an American citizen, a counter-protester advocating for peace and equality, killed her on the anniversary of her death. They wanted to revitalize the same movement that caused her death, and we didn't have anybody speak out about it.
Yeah. And it was slow for those boys when they got out there. Wasn't nothing going on for them.
Yeah.
They probably were outnumbered by the police, honestly. If it was only 25 of them, the police was probably deeper than them. They probably had a personal escort, each one of them.
Yeah, so, Jason Kessler was the one who organized this Unite the Right rally. He tweeted insults about the Heather Heyer who died last year. He tweeted insults about her. He tweeted insults about the counter-protesters advocating for equality and, just universal human rights to be a thing in America. And then blamed it on Xanax and other things. That was the leader of the Unite the Right movement this year. So let that speak for whatever it is. But they made their march to Lafayette Square, which is funny to me because I go to Lehigh, so we don't like Lafayette. And it's funny that the white supremacists was marching to Lafayette Square. It's just funny. I'm not saying Lafayette's racist or nothing. It definitely isn't. But
You should have connect the dots.
Yeah, I mean, we just put that out there because we're Lehigh grads. But anyway, like we said, a lot of people said that this showing of this in this rally with only less than 30 people showing up to a rally for white supremacy, they were like, oh, this is a huge step for progression, for racial equality and racial justice. And I think it can be if it's used the right way, right? We have to look at why this rally wasn't as successful as the one last year, or successful as defined by the white supremacists, right?
Why do you think they didn't come out this time?
What'd you say?
So why do you think they didn't come out this time?
Thanks for asking, Mark. I'll answer that question. One, because at least a dozen people from the rally last year were arrested and indicted on assault charges for beating up, a black protester here, or vandalizing, throwing things. Some people were shooting guns off into crowds. They were carrying assault rifles, which isn't against the law, but they were clearly trying to intimidate the counter-protesters, right? One was charged for murder, and then countless others had their pictures and faces plastered over the internet, and ended up losing their jobs, losing their livelihoods, because their employers found out they were racist because they were at a racist rally. So all of that is to say this. When you give someone incentive not to be racist, it's a lot harder for them to publicly be racist. Now, this did not fix the racism problem.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. This is just my logic. I'm not going to say that I disagree with the methods that we've employed to diminish their numbers.
Mm-hmm.
The people that, you're just putting their information out there, do you really think that's going to make them not racist? Like, do you think that's going to make them change their mind per se. Like I know that there's not really too many ways to reach them, but harassing them isn't going to do anything, in my opinion, but push them to do something more radical.
And
Now they're
I'll counter that by saying this. I don't think you're ever gonna change a racist mind. If somebody's genuinely a racist, you know, it's kind of like trying to convert somebody in terms of religion. There's a select few who might be susceptible to that, and those are like the diamonds in the rough, right? The people who they might have a change of heart and become good people one day. But generally, if someone is a genuine racist, you're not going to change them from being a racist. You might be able to change their children. You might be able to change the cycle of racism. And so as we grow, we become less racist. But I don't think you're going to change an individual's mind regardless of what you do.
I think that's you could take that on a case by case basis. I feel like racism, face value, is a matter of ignorance. You just simply don't know certain things. Like you hear certain things, you don't hear any arguments to counter it. You turn on your TV, and your TV is full of stereotypes. So you assume the stereotypes to be facts because you've just been hearing the same stereotypes being perpetuated by your friends and family and TV your whole life. And you haven't really met anybody that breaks the stereotype. Me and you are two people that kind of break the stereotype for us, but that's beside the point. I'm kind of trying to allude to the fact that there are ways to show that there are exceptions to the rule, I guess, if that makes sense. But I'm not saying that they won't be racist.
Yeah, I mean, I don't...
Like to make them, you can make them like more tolerable. Like you can make them,
Yeah, I think that...
You can make them decide against going outside with a tiki torch without, sitting hating on.
I don't know. To me, I think there are plenty of examples of against the stereotype minorities, right? So, like, I guess the stereotypical black person would be a super thugged out gangster that run around killing and robbing and, doing like the Wild Wild West in the hood or something.
I don't real life.
Yeah. So that's like the super stereotypical black guy, right? And I think there's millions upon millions of examples of not stereotypical black people. So I would count, again, this is just for the sake of arguing, I guess, but this is genuinely what I believe. Yes, I think racism is driven by ignorance, but I think most importantly, racism is driven by willful ignorance. Like, you can present an argument to a racist. A black person can be more articulate, more knowledgeable, present more facts, and the racist will call you the N-word and walk out of the room and be racist at home. Like,
you know why he'll be racist at home? Because he lives. I'm not gonna. You see, I'm about to say something real slick, but I'm gonna stop myself.
Good job.
Say that in Ohio he lives in Beaver Creek. Beaver Creek is 99% white. This is the data. This is the census. These are the numbers. It's been 99% white since at least 2000. It might have been 98% white. It fluctuated between 98 and 99.
Yeah.
If you show him one example outside of his community of somebody that breaks the stereotype, and then he goes home to his 99% of white people, and everybody in that 99% still holds that same stereotype, it's not going to change his mind. You have to try to change the entire community's perception of a group of people, and that is much more difficult.
But do you think that would be more effective than when these people leave those communities that have racism ingrained into their culture? They leave those communities and try to broadcast that racism on a public sphere, right? In a rally, KKK rally, a white supremacist rally, neo-Nazi rally, whatever. They try to broadcast that ideology to the world. Their face gets plastered everywhere. They lose their job, lose their livelihood, go back to their communities, don't have a job, they're upset, and then the little kid that was on the borderline of, my daddy says black people aren't that good, but I got a little black friend at school, he's on the borderline of whether or not he's going to be racist, right? He sees, racist Johnny down the creek just lost his whole job for being racist. Maybe I should lean towards at least giving the black folks a chance. Like,
But my thing is, this is just me being a pessimist. I think, like a businessman, if you have an employee who's all over Twitter and Instagram, and everybody's calling him a racist, you don't have a choice but to fire him. That doesn't necessarily mean that you disagree with what he said or what he did. You just had to fire him. That doesn't, like, we don't know what happens to them after they get fired. They can just get hired somewhere in the community and be perfectly fine. And then that whole, looking at them as an example of what not to do doesn't happen. And I know that there were people in Centerville, specifically, like, that I saw posted on my Facebook feed that went to the rally, and they just blocked people. Like, they weren't talking to anybody. Like, I clicked on their page. I didn't add them or anything. I didn't message them or anything, but I went to their page and I couldn't see anything. They had it private. So, and I saw people that had people on my page had added them. We're talking about how they had gotten blocked. Trying to talk.
Yeah, but I understand what you're saying for sure, right? Like, changing I just feel like it's more difficult to change the mindset of an entire generation of people. Because, like, if you look at it, like, the percentage of racists in our generation is lower than the percentage of racists in our parents' generation, right? It gets lower and lower the further we go. And I feel like that's because as a society, we've started giving people consequences for being racist. Now, the system doesn't have consequences for being racist. The government, when it passes racist legislation, doesn't have consequences for being racist. But more and more people are starting to recognize those things. Like black people, white people, all kinds of people are starting to recognize the systematic racism that is. And therefore, the racism that's used to be rampant in just like everyday life is no longer tolerable. Like, that's why there's these videos of, a white woman calls a black person the N-word and she gets posted everywhere, loses her job. Like the one lady who called the police on the little black girl selling water outside. And she was a marijuana distributor.
Yeah, she lost her.
Yeah, she lost her license. The people who sponsored her didn't sponsor her anymore. So it's like you get consequences for being outright racist, being subliminally racist, being prejudiced. You have consequences for those things. And so...
Where's the example of you getting in trouble for being subliminally racist?
Well, that one example I just said, she didn't call anybody the N-word. She just...
Outright racism to me. You calling the police on a child, selling water or something.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. She would say it wasn't because she was black. It was because she didn't have a permit, right? She didn't have a permit to sell there. So you can't be like, oh.
But that makes it outright racist. My thing is, subliminal racism, like subliminal racism to me, is more accepted. Like, it's more prevalent today. Like, it's more socially acceptable for you to be subliminally racist, like to hide your racism, to code it in your language, than to go to a Unite the Right rally. If you go to the Unite the Right rally and you just got your face out, bro, the people in the KKK wear sheets. You can't see their faces.
Yeah.
If it goes to a KKK rally online, because you'll just have a picture of a sheet, you can't do that to them. You go to the Unite the Right rally with your face out, you're stupid because your face is out, bro. Somebody can take a picture of you. And if anybody you see in the world knows you, if anybody in the world that you know sees you in that picture, you're out of there. And that's just stupid, like, logically.
Yeah.
So, like, it's 2018. You can't outright be racist like that. In Beaver Creek, you would get in trouble for saying something outright racist like that. But for a fact that in the communities around us, not specifically Beaver Creek, because I don't know too many people specifically in Beaver Creek, but I know in the communities around us, from playing football and sports against these communities, they have no issue using foul language and vulgar words that they shouldn't be using. Mm-hmm. So that leads me to believe that the community doesn't necessarily deter you from doing it, even if there are black people on the team or in the school, if they're the extreme minority in those situations.
Yeah, I understand. I don't like. I think, like you said, to be maybe subliminally wasn't the right word. Like microaggressions, of course, there's no consequence for microaggressions. There's no consequence for, can I touch your hair? What's your hair feel like? Wow, like, and I mean, that's the stuff that's like borderline, like, if you ask that question, I'm more liable to think that you're racist, but like, I don't know. It's like, yeah, that's more of just like pure ignorance. Like, you don't know that you're doing something racist, but like, at the end of the day, like, when somebody tells you that it's racist, you should be like, oh, my bad, and never do it ever again, right? But I'm talking about like the use of the N word and all that stuff. Like, that used to be like, oh, if a white person said the N word, it was like black people felt uncomfortable, but everybody else was like, it's just a word. Nowadays, it's like, if a white person texts a black person the N word and they screenshot it and put it on Twitter, any opportunities you had in the immediate future, done. So that's what I'm saying in terms of the fact that we've progressed. But this was more. I feel like Charlottesville this year was more of an example of how to deter people from being openly racist, right? So like the genuine racists, those people, like I said, I don't think we're gonna change their minds necessarily, but I think if we convince them that they shouldn't, I mean, you just can't be racist outside your house. Like, if you want to scream the N word in your house all day, like, if you're in your house, go ahead, boss. Scream till your lungs run out. But as soon as you step outside those doors and you start acting a fool, your your money will be affected. Your family's livelihood will be affected in terms of they're gonna lose half their income. So it's like these like economic consequences for racism. I think is the key to stopping it long term. It's not going to be a quick fix. We're not going to. You're obviously not going to be able to say, you know, we're going to give you economic consequence if you're racist, and then all the racists are just like, oh, okay, well, we'll stop. But if you show them over time that every time you do something racist, or if the government enforces a racist policy, and black people, minorities, and the white people who understand just stopped dealing with, like when Starbucks has a racist issue and people are like, yo, I'm not going to Starbucks because Starbucks did this racist thing. That's economic power, right? That's like the boycotts, the bus boycotts, the sit-ins, disrupting people's livelihood and their lives.
Disrupting their flow of income is a lot better way to get their attention.
Yeah.
But I was about to say it's a lot better of a way of getting their attention than sending hate mail to their house, but the hate mail did get results. I understand, but
yeah, I mean, but you don't want to. I mean, because sending hate mail is there. That has consequences for you as well. Just because
there was the type that I was making on the hate mail, that type of aggressive, like meeting hate with hate, is not the way to move. I know that it sounds stupid, but Malcolm X is my favorite, activist. He's my favorite one. And he wasn't telling you to go out and just fight white people, send hate mail to their house. That's not the way, that's what I've done. That's not what he would have told you to do. So, people need to understand that. Understand that when they're doing that, they're not really helping the cause as much as they think they are. They're just letting out their anger and they're venting to the person that caused them the anger. When in reality, they need to think about it and be more productive and try to help the whole, try to help the community. And it might not be necessarily, sending hate mail to him. It might be going outside and cutting the grass at a house that's vacant because it's making the neighborhood look bad.
Yeah.
It's for you to channel that frustration that you're feeling about, injustice and racism and all these other things and be productive and not, potentially giving somebody a reason to go out and murder a black person because they're mad at you. Because we can't say that it's impossible, bro, because we've seen examples of people going on the computer, not like when they turn the computer, and going outside and shooting everybody. We've seen that happen numerous times. So y'all need to stop playing with people like that. That's just my opinion. That's my take on it.
Hey, and with that, I think that's a good place to close it. In closing, Charlottesville was a dud this year. White supremacists take the L, and enjoy it because we certainly are. But with that, thank you guys for tuning in. Like, comment, share, subscribe.
Make sure you share.
Yeah, share. Share twice if you want to. That'd be great.
Want to share all you can share every time you see it.
Exactly. But in all seriousness, thank you for tuning in. We hope you guys are enjoying the content, and please, if you have suggestions for how we can improve relaying this information to you, or topics that you think we should cover, let us know. Leave them in the comments. You can inbox me or Mark, specifically inbox This Is America's Twitter and Instagram accounts. We're always open to suggestions, and we want this to be an interactive type show. So, keep with us, and we're going to keep with you guys. So thanks.
Be safe.